Ready to go. I assume there's some people out there. On my screen, I have our speakers today. I don't have any of our attendees. I'm looking down here and I see we have 15 participants. So thanks everyone for attending. Good morning. My name is Art Thomas, and I'm the chair of the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and will be for about 8 more weeks. And John's got a smile on his face because he's been there, done that, and can remember when there was only 8 weeks left, how the smile got a little bigger. So we look forward to changing things over here shortly, and that's part of what we're going to do next. But I see we have Tracy Witter on, and I want to just give a real quick thank you to PPL for sponsoring today's What Happens Now. Thank goodness we've got Charlie Gerow with us today and Bob Garrett, because I know that when we're done today, we will know who's in control of the U.S. Senate, who's in control of the U.S. House, and who's in control of the Pennsylvania State House. And that's what makes the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber so valuable, is we have these answers for you so early on. Obviously, that's tongue-in-cheek, but maybe we can at least get some insight on what we've seen and where we might be going. So before we get to that fun part, though, we need to bring on John Euling. He's the chair of this year's nominating committee, and we have some official bylaw business that we need to get out of the way. And John and his committee have been working hard for the last 2 months, trying to figure out who we want to invite onto the Greater Susquehanna Valley Board of Directors. And without further ado, John, tell us what you've come up with.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Art. And I will start with, we will know who will be on the nominations list. So first, I'd like to start by thanking the nominations committee members. As you know, by the Chamber's bylaws, we spell out the process, including who can serve on the nominations committee. This includes my fellow past board chair, Sue Green. It also includes current board members, Malcolm Dirk of Susquehanna University, Sam Hallman of Service Electric, and John Karelja of the CSIU. In accordance with the bylaws, Article 5, we would like to place the following individuals into nomination for a term beginning January 1st, 2023. Board of Directors Chair, Amy Buhner, Bowen Agency. Board of Directors Vice Chair, Jeff Reber, Susquehanna Home Improvements. For Regional Vice Presidents, Greg Zay with Weiss Markets, Region 1, first 2-year term. Leslie Temple, Fulton Bank, Region 2, second 2-year term. Phil DeRose, UPMC, Region 3, second 2-year term. Gino Welsh, Bruisers, Region 4, second 2-year term. Sam Hallman, Service Electric, Region 5, first 2-year term. Malcolm Dirk, Susquehanna University, Region 6, first 2-year term. For directors, Fred Scheller, The Daily Item, Board of Directors, first 3-year term. Bo Hoffman, Axe Runkle, Board of Directors, additional 3-year term. Sarah Snyder, Shared Support, Board of Directors, first 3-year term. Melissa Day, Luzerne Community College, Board of Directors, first 3-year term. Chad Evans, Stone State Entertainment, Board of Directors, additional 3-year term. And Ryan McNally, the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA, Board of Directors, first 3-year term. Mr. Chairman, at this time, and on behalf of the Nominations Committee, I respectfully place these individuals' names into nomination. My understanding, per our Chamber's bylaws, is that additional nominations may be accepted for 5 days. Nominators may contact the Chamber staff to complete the necessary petitions to nominate from the floor. Should additional qualified nominations be made, the Chamber will conduct an election as prescribed by the bylaws. If no additional nominations are received by close of business on November 15th, the Secretary of the Chamber Board will claim a unanimous ballot on behalf of these nominees. Thank you again to our 2023 nominations committees, the board at large, and my heartfelt thanks to our nominees for allowing your names to be placed into nominations. With your guidance and your wisdom, we have a bright future ahead. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thanks so much for that, John. And you've gotten to know me over the past 6 or so years, and I always like to keep people on their feet. This may seem to be a little self-serving. Bob, I need your attention here too. I noticed my name wasn't mentioned for immediate past chair. Is that automatic, or does that need to be part of the nomination?
That's
John.
automatic, and I automatically missed that, Art. So for the record, I will automatically apologize. So as you know, and we will know, you are the immediate past chair, and you have 2 more years of service at a minimum, but we're going to start the clock now.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, thank you. Bob, turning to you, is there anything that we need to formally do at this time, or does that, has John concluded what needs to be done for business at today's meeting?
Let me just add a clarification. So what John has just done is opened the floor to nominations. We don't need a second or anything like that. What I want everyone to know is now the floor is open to nominations. If you would like to nominate from the floor, the process for that is it's a petition. Just contact any chamber staff and we can give you a petition. You'll need to get, for board members, 10 signatures from current board members, and for vice presidents, 20 signatures. By way of reminder, the chamber is a republic, not a democracy. So every member business gets 1 vote, okay? So in other words, the Geisinger with their 35,000 employees gets 1 vote, as well as our smallest employer gets 1 vote. So if you would like to nominate from the floor, that'll be fine. I think we have a great board that we've worked on there. But if you do want to do that, just contact any chamber member, any chamber staffer, and we'll be happy to take care of that for you. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Bob. And I think when you mentioned the petition there and needing 10 signatures and 20 signatures for vice president, you meant to say any current chamber member business signatures, not board member signatures, right?
Yes, that I did. Yeah, and I automatically made that mistake.
All right, folks. I think it's time for us to shut up here and maybe let Kendi do a little introduction. Kendi, are you ready?
I am ready. And so I would like to thank everyone for being here. We are very excited from the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce for a wonderful reflection today that will include our very own Bob Garrett and Charlie Gerow talking about these interesting times that we are in and what just happened and where do we go from here. But before we let them get started, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing a woman that I have come to know and admire, whose work in our region is always focused on uplifting others, even when it has absolutely nothing to do with her business at hand. And she is a very gracious supporter of the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce and all things in and around our Susquehanna River Valley region. And so Tracy, with PP&L, thank you so much for being a sponsor for this event and a lot of what the chamber does. And so you have the floor.
Great. Thanks, Kendi. That was very sweet. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to say a few remarks during this great meeting. I just wanted to start by talking about price. I know it's on everyone's minds. So hopefully the information that I share today about your PPL bill, you will be able to share with your coworkers, your family members, and your own help impact your own practices of using energy. So as many of you know, we have what's called a price to compare. So PPL delivers electricity. We don't generate the electricity. We are not a generator. Our goal is to maintain and upgrade the infrastructure. So the poles and the wires that you see, the delivery system. So what we do for the price to compare is we go to market 2 times a year. We go to an auction on a certain date that is approved years in advance, about 2 years in advance by the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. So we can't change the dates that we go to auction. We go on that day, we get the very best price we can in energy. We pass that along to our customers with no markup. There's no profit to PPL on the energy portion of your bill. So we recently went to market and we have a new price that will start on December 1st. So it will go from 12 cents per kilowatt hour, this is for residential, up to 14 cents per kilowatt hour for residential. For businesses, it goes from 11 cents to 14 cents. We attribute this cost to a variety of factors, mostly inflation, the rising costs of energy supply itself, and supply chain issues. So at PPL, though, kind of as Kendi said, we really do care about our customers, and we want our customers to get the best price they can, or their bill to be as reasonable as possible. So just to quickly explain, when you get your PPL bill, hopefully you're all PPL customers, you live in our service territory, there's a supply side of your bill and a delivery side. The delivery side is what we can control, and that is 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And it has not changed since 2016. We have to go to change our delivery rate. We have to go to the PUC and deliver what's called a rate case. It's a very lengthy process. The supply side is what changes every 6 months. And if you get your supply from that's called the default rate and you get it directly from PPL, it's going to be that 14 cents. Now you can shop for your energy. We encourage people to do that. However, right now, it's kind of hard to find a better price than 14 cents per kilowatt hour. But I just wanted to explain that to you because lots of times on social media and just in talking, people will say, oh, PPL's killing me with their price increase. So it's true, your bill is increasing, but it's the generation side of your bill that we have no control over. So hopefully that helps enlighten all of you and you can share this information. And again, we want to help our customers with those costs. So we have a whole bunch of tips on our website. I'm just going to share a couple of them here with you in case you want to do this in your home. First, with lighting, try to make sure you have LED lights everywhere. They last 20 years longer than incandescent bulbs, and you'll save on replacement costs as well. Outdoor lights are the most used lights in a home, so make sure your fixture is an Energy Star fixture. So that means it's rated and it uses 75% less energy, and they also last 20 years longer. Heating, we recommend a smart thermostat so that you can program it and you can control it. It works off of your home's Wi-Fi and you can control it from your phone. We recommend 68 degrees or lower. If you do that, you can save about $180 a year by using a smart thermostat. Simple things too, close the damper on your fireplace. During the day, I know I do this when I leave and go to my office, leave the curtains and blinds open on the south side of your house so that you get the sun during the day. And then finally, we have some recycling programs. We take old refrigerators. They use a ton of energy. So if you want to get a new refrigerator, get an Energy Star refrigerator, call us if you want us to come get your old refrigerator. We'll give you a $50 rebate. It's so convenient. You get money and you don't have to deal with disposing of it. Also, dehumidifiers will give you $10 for that. Over the years, we've collected 28,000 refrigerators since we started the program in 2016. The other thing is these are things anybody can do. You can call us if you have central air or use electric heat. We'll do a free 30-minute virtual home assessment. And we'll suggest rebates. So the energy advisor will walk with you around your house and tell you ways that you can save energy. So that's free to all our customers. You also can sign up for budget billing, where we average your costs for the year and give you one fixed monthly payment. So it's very predictable. You don't see the spikes in your bill. And we have a variety, so many assistance programs for people of low income. So if you know of anyone, just tell them to call our 1-800 number. Again, there's more of this information on our website, savewithppl.com. 2 other little things that people don't realize, set your hot water heater to 120 degrees. You can save a lot of money by doing that. And then if you have ceiling fans, look on them because there's counterclockwise and a clockwise direction. In the winter, switch it to the clockwise direction because it pushes the warm air down. And then in summer, you would turn it to counterclockwise because it pushes the warm air up. So those are just little things. But again, we care about our customers. We care about all of you. And hopefully I shared some information that you can take with you and share with your friends and coworkers. And with that, I'm concluded my remarks, and I appreciate the time. Thanks, Kendi.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And Art, we roll back to you for the moderation of our next segment.
Well, everybody online knows that Bob and Charlie need a moderator, and that's what I'm here for. I will make sure that they don't put any of us to sleep today, and if need be, push them along. But Malcolm Dirk was supposed to be our moderator today, and unfortunately he's under the weather. You know, Malcolm, politics is his hobby at this point, used to be his career. So you know he wouldn't be missing this event unless he absolutely had to. He's really not feeling too well right now. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob and Charlie and just let you guys start going. I know that Bob knows how to feed Charlie, and Charlie's going to give us some great answers. Go ahead, guys.
Yes, thank you, Art. Yeah, let me begin by setting the stage and also thanking Tracy. Tracy, as you were talking, Charlie and I couldn't help but comparing notes back and forth. With all your excellent tips, it reminds us that Thanksgiving is coming up, and the thermostat wars will begin that day when our children return back home, and they turn them up and we turn them down. But it's what dads do. So thank you for all those tips. Also, Tracy, I'll look forward to spending the afternoon, or at least a portion of the afternoon, with you at the PPL and PennDOT are working together to do a series of workshops that all the chamber members were invited to, related to installing electric vehicle charging stations. And I think it'll be critically important in the greater Susquehanna Valley that we prepare for the future and get those charging stations around. So thank you very much, Tracy. You're a great partner and an informative partner. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so let me just tell you, I'm sitting. I got to sleep in a little bit this morning. I got to stay home, but then I'm going to finish the day in Williamsport. But I'm sitting on at 123 State Street in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in the world headquarters of Quantum Communications with the president and CEO of that company, Charlie Gerow. I'm sitting in his boardroom, which overlooks State Street. By the way, State Street is the street right in front of the Pennsylvania Capitol building, and it is just a spectacular morning here in Harrisburg. I think if I were here yesterday morning early, I would have been seeing a lot of blurry eyes, but everybody looks chipper and well rested and got a good night's sleep last night. They didn't have to stay up to watch election returns last evening the way they did the night before. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about, so what happens now? And one more, just to set the stage, I sort of feel like I'm sitting in the Smithsonian. I was looking around before this began, and there's a document on the wall signed by Thomas and Richard Penn, the sons of William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania. I feel like I'm in a historical place, and I'm sitting beside what is known as the Don Ely Memorial Chair, right? Don was a longtime member of the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber and the Central Susquehanna Valley Chamber before that. The second Wednesday of every month, Charlie hosts a workshop where he has a lot of policy discussions, off the record policy discussions at his workshops. And yesterday he began with Jeff Lord, the Fox commentator, talking about the national picture of what he knew at that point, which yesterday morning was a lot less than what we know this morning. But then he had probably the most powerful panel you've ever had at one of your workshops. He had Ryan Unger from the Harrisburg Regional Chamber and myself on to talk about what chambers of commerce do every day. So with all that as background, let me get started. Charlie Gerow, first off, let me thank you. This morning you sent out your email and noted that it's the 247th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. The Marine Corps was founded in Philadelphia. Charlie can tell you more about that. And so today, folks, if you bump into a Marine, wish him or her a happy birthday. Tomorrow, please take a moment at the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, and just pause for a moment and remember the veterans that remind us every day that freedom is not free, and that there was a hard fought. What we did on Tuesday night has been defended with nothing less than the blood of young men and women since the beginning of our nation. So, Charlie, thank you for remembering Marines today and all veterans tomorrow. Charlie Gerow, first off, let's start with introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your connections to the greater Susquehanna Valley and to the folks that are listening in this morning, and then we'll get into it. So what happens now once you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me, Bob, and happy birthday to the Marines. And as all of you will, thank you to our veterans tomorrow, especially at 11/11. And I hope we'll all take a moment to pause and reflect at 11/11 tomorrow morning. And Art, thank you for having me today as your guest. And to Tracy, I'm a happy PPL customer, and I think you did a great job explaining to us some of the things we can do to save money. But I'm always happy to pay my electric bill. I think I get full value from you folks. And Kendi Alvarez was here yesterday in this room at our policy briefing, and I would just issue an invitation to any of you that would like to join us at 123 State Street, easy address to remember, right in front of the Capitol. We meet on the second Wednesday of each month at 10 o'clock, and you're more than welcome to join us if you want to be added to the invitation list so that you can know who the speakers are, et cetera. Just give a business card to Bob Garrett, and he'll make sure that you're added to the list and that we can welcome you here. Just by way of introduction, my bio, I think, is pretty clear in revealing my political bias. I don't make much of too many bones of that. I began my career working for Ronald Reagan, so you can kind of figure out where I am today. I am the CEO of Quantum Communications. We are a both public affairs and corporate media group. We do a lot of work, particularly in the energy sector with natural gas in particular, but with other energy developers as well. We do some work in transportation and some in healthcare, but there are always a project here or there. The other place that comes into play for us on the corporate communication side. And we're happy to be your neighbors to the south, right along the Susquehanna River, which flows down from you and between the river and the Capitol here in beautiful Harrisburg. And I'm delighted to be with you and my old friend, Bob Garrett, who I've known for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah. Decades.
Yeah, 5 or 6 decades.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Charlie, let's get started. I think probably the best way for us to start is at the federal level, then the federal level in Pennsylvania. Then we'll talk about the governor and United States Senate, then the House of, then the state Senate and our House of Representatives. Talk a little bit about we have some new faces in the greater Susquehanna Valley. And then I don't want to end without a call to service, call to arms, however you want to say it, because next year, folks, are the municipal elections. I counted yesterday, 400 positions will be open in the greater Susquehanna Valley. And wouldn't it be great to get recruit some chamber members to fill those municipal slots? So, well, let's start at the national level. You know, I think as we build up to the election, you heard something along the lines of maybe it was going to be a Republican year, and then you heard about a red wave, and then you heard about a red tsunami. I think by 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning or so, we were experiencing a purple plop, is what I would call it. It was really almost a textbook midterm election. You know, midterms are a little bit different than presidentials, and it was nearly textbook. So what's your takeaway in the big picture of the federal elections from Tuesday evening?
And you're right, Bob. There was a lot of chatter in the media and a lot of optimism on the part of Republican operatives across the country and regular rank and file Republicans that there was going to be a very, very significant uptick for Republicans in both the House and the Senate in Washington, largely because these midterm elections generally run in two trends. One against the party in power. That's historic. Only George W. Bush, right post 9/11, was able to avoid, a very, very serious dent in the first midterm after his election. And that's where you generally get the biggest swings against the party in power, but also because the national economy and inflation in particular. Inflation was the one big word that Republicans wanted to use in this election, Bob. And I think a lot of folks believed that as a result of that, there was going to be at least a red wave, if not a red tsunami, that Republicans would control the Senate by 52, 53, some even said 54 seats, and that they would have a majority in the House somewhere around 240. And some were predicting even north of that. Sitting here today, neither one of those scenarios is going to happen. It still is relatively possible that the Republicans can take control of the Senate. It's pretty clear that they'll take control of the House, but by nowhere near the numbers that were anticipated. There are a couple of reasons for that outside of the votes that were cast Tuesday night. I'd be happy to talk about that. But the votes that were cast on Tuesday night were pretty clearly not what Republicans had hoped for.
Right, and I'd like to sort of keep our focus on, excuse me, our focus on what we know, and what we know we don't know. What we know is that the Senate is going to be very, very tight. We know that Georgia will decide the majority. It's a repeat of 2 years ago. And what we know is that the Republicans, it looks like will control the House of Representatives, had put forward before the election, similar to what Newt Gingrich had done several decades ago, a sort of a contract with America, sort of a plan. Have you had any time to look at that plan, and what does it mean to businesses, and particularly small businesses like we have in the greater Susquehanna Valley?
If they could get that plan across the goal line, it would mean a lot of really good things for businesses and small businesses in particular, the great job creators in our country. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Even if they control the House, they've got a Senate that's still up for grabs, and you've got the president with that veto pen. So hopefully they'll be able to get some small pieces out of there on which items they can agree upon. Sadly, in my judgment, that plan was not cast in the way that Newt Gingrich and his allies did in 1994, where they had a huge victory and took back control of the House after decades of being in the minority, when they really focused on the contract with America. Even political groupies like you and I could probably not tell very much about the plan that McCarthy and the Republicans put out this time. And it certainly was not something that was being talked about at coffee shops and across breakfast tables.
Excellent point. I know there's a plan. I haven't read one word of it. I will tell you that my hope as your president and CEO of the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber is that we can keep our focus as much as possible on to improving the business climate of not only Pennsylvania, but of the United States of America. I know there's a lot of tugs and pulls towards, getting even on some issues. You hear a lot about the president's son's laptop. You hear a lot about getting even on other things. I think at this point, Americans are just fatigued. We're tired of that, and we'd really like to get back to some basic governance. I believe that good policy is good politics. Well, let's talk a little bit about Pennsylvania. So we're going to have a new United States Senator. He's had a couple things to say about business. I heard on Tuesday night he mentioned something about minimum wage. In the greater Susquehanna Valley, we're really excited. Now, we're sorry to say goodbye to Fred Keller. Fred's a good friend, has represented us well. The map drawers were unkind to Fred, and I'm being as polite as I possibly can in saying that we're going to say goodbye to Fred, and we'll try to do that in a very formal and effective way. We're going to say hello to G.T. Thompson, and our valley will be split exactly in half, but in a way that sort of makes sense. The river will be the divider. So to the west, Union and Snyder County and G.T. Thompson's district. To the east, in Dan Muser's district. Interestingly, both GT and Dan won with 70% of the vote. Right. So those were serious, definitive votes. But let's start with.
Well, let me just interrupt you for a second too about GT Thompson, who you're going to be blessed to have as one of your members. GT is going to be one of the most important people in Washington, D.C. in the Congress of the United States, because it's almost assured that he's going to be the chair of the House Agriculture Committee, which in and of itself is one of the most prominent and important positions because of what it does. But for Pennsylvania and our agrarian economy here is going to be really, really important. So you're blessed to have GT. And of course, Dan Muser has, set forth a really good record for himself. Not quite as senior as GT Thompson, but having GT as your congressman, I think it's going to be a real boon to the Susquehanna Valley.
We'll get back to to our new senator in a minute, but I want to explore, because I know you are a personal friend of GT Thompson, chairman of the Ag Committee. My understanding is this is the cycle of the 6-year cycle of the Ag Bill, the U.S. Ag Bill. What advice would you give to a rank and file chamber member? How do you interact, number one, with a member of Congress, but more importantly, given your friendship with GT, how do you interact with GT Thompson?
Let me just say this:
what gets him out of bed in the morning?
GT is one of the most accessible members of Congress, if not the most accessible member of Congress. He's just a regular guy. If you went to his house, you'd say, wow, there's nothing fancy, Dan, about GT at all. He still is a member of a volunteer fire company up in Howard, Pennsylvania, in Howard, where he lives, and is as down to earth as anybody could humanly be. And so he's very, very approachable on a one-to-one level. So, seek him out when he comes to meet with your chamber. Make sure that you make friends with him. But his staff is also, world-class, as is Dan Muser's. And, getting in touch with members through their staff, because they're very, very busy folks, is the best way to communicate with them on anything that you want immediate action on. But over time, developing a relationship with both Congressman Muser and Congressman Thompson is going to be really important to your members on a personal level.
Right. And I think as GT crafts that Ag Bill, we're going to make sure that our agribusinesses are there, that our farmers and producers are all at the table. Tell us a little bit about Dan Muser. We know that he was formerly the Secretary of Revenue for Governor Corbett. We know that he was he is a business person. What can you tell us about Dan Muser and how
you say Dan was the Secretary of Revenue under Governor Corbett. Prior to that, he ran Prime, which is a company that creates these devices that people get around on that aren't ambulatory. And so he understands the business community very well as a businessman and business person himself. He's very, very approachable, like GT Thompson. And again, with both of these folks, you want to make sure that you get to know their staff. They've got district offices that are close by. Make sure you get to know the people that actually run the congressional offices.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit. Thank you. Appreciate that. And it's really helpful for our members to have that insight, that personal insight to our members of Congress.
Pride, not prime. Pride mobility.
Pride mobility.
Pride mobility.
Okay, thank you. You stand corrected. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, who is about to become, or who is Senator-elect Fetterman. Have you gotten have you gotten to know him yet? I know that I think we all really appreciate that his words when he says to anybody who's gotten knocked down and gotten back up. But he's a bit of an anomaly to us. He dresses a little bit different than most of us do, etc. Tell us about him as an individual and how you would suggest to a chamber member. How do you interact?
John Fetterman is a fascinating guy. I mean, he looks like the doorman at a biker bar, but as you know, he has a degree from Harvard University. I made it a point to get to know John Fetterman a number of years ago when he was mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, because I was interested in what he had created as his brand. I mean, he clearly was not your usual small town mayor. He's on the cover of Atlantic magazine as mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania. That's not something that usually happens. So I made it a point to get to know him, and he has an interesting little twist to his story. His wife was born in the same town that I was. Now, being Pennsylvania, just say, well, is it Nanny Glow or is it, Selinsgrove or Sunbury or wherever?
Yeah.
It's 5,000 miles away from here, Bob.
Right.
Both of us were born in Brazil. And so I've got a little bit of a connection there that some other folks might not have, but I've gotten to know John over the years. His politics are clearly not mine. He's significantly left of center, and I tend to be a little right of center. But I think he's a very likable person, a very approachable person. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he actually comports himself as a U.S. Senator. Is he going to be a far left Bernie Sanders type, or is he going to be more in the mold of Bob Casey? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I think what we'll be encouraging him is to understand that we have some real issues in the greater Susquehanna Valley, and you know, maybe it's time to leave the celebrity stuff aside and deal with the real issues affecting businesses, and particularly small businesses.
Get to know him, get to know his staff. He'll have regional offices, probably an office in Harrisburg, and probably one in Williamsport. So get to know the staff. They're the people that really make these offices run.
That's a good point. So let's go back to the theme of this morning's workshop, and that is this morning's Rise and Shine is what happens now. From your viewpoint in Washington, D.C., and with a focus on the Pennsylvania delegation, what would you say? What happens now?
Well, our delegation is relatively unchanged. As you know, we lost a seat in reapportionment, which is, just on a side note, a real travesty for Pennsylvania, Bob. We've lost seats in every single reapportionment in your and my lifetime.
Right.
And if you look back 100 years ago, we had more than double the members of Congress that we do now. Think about that. We've lost more seats in the United States Congress than all but 2 or 3 states have in their entire delegation. 19 now, 19 seats in the United States Congress. We've lost more than we have in our delegation. And that, you know, has a really negative impact on the state, both Republican and Democrat. And everybody ought to be asking ourselves, why are we, with a stagnant population, with all the glory that we have in Pennsylvania? And I just wanted to get that side note in there because I think it's really significant. So the congressional delegation remains largely unchanged, with the exception of the lost seat that you alluded to earlier. But you've now got, instead of a split delegation on the Senate side, an all Democrat delegation on the Senate side. That will have impact specifically in the federal courts. And as we all know, the federal courts have a very, very significant impact on the business community in particular, but on the Commonwealth and the country as a whole. So you're going to go from a situation where Bob Casey and Pat Toomey had an agreement about how they were going to, quote unquote, split up the federal judicial appointments, to one where it will be all Democrats for the time being.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to shift our focus now to the state, and I'm going to ask Kendi or Art. I'm watching the time at 9:08. You're our gatekeepers. You're our traffic cops. Let us know if we're going a little long of tooth, or if we've missed an issue, we've glossed over something that you think we need to go deeper into. Let's talk about the state. We will have a new governor. We will have a new lieutenant governor. The state Senate. Now, neither of our 2 senators, Gene Yaw and John Gordner, were up for re-election this year, so that not a heavy impact there. But we have a lot of new House members in the greater Susquehanna Valley, some new phases, and everybody's district changed somewhat. But let's talk about governor and lieutenant governor. So General Shapiro becomes Governor-elect Shapiro, and a member of the House from Philadelphia becomes the Lieutenant Governor-elect. Tell us what you know about Shapiro and Davis, and what you might look forward to come their inauguration. And take a minute, Charlie, and just talk to folks about the transition process. I know I heard yesterday that Ryan Unger said, I'm going to do what I can to affect the transition process, maybe be on the DCD transition team. How would someone from the greater Susquehanna Valley get on that transition team? So number one, what are the big issues?
Typically,
how do you do that?
You can go and literally apply to be part of the transition team. Clearly, most of the members of the transition team are folks that were involved in the campaign, that have been political allies and supporters and helpers and aides to Attorney General, now Governor-elect Shapiro. But members do have an opportunity to participate in that transition process. Transition's a little bit different, Bob, when you've got it from party to party. We haven't had that in a long time. We haven't had a skein of 12 years in one party in Pennsylvania's governorship since before the Civil War. And I don't know how much further back it might go than that, if ever. I mean, we've always had, for that 65-year period, we had 8 years Republican, 8 years Democrat,
Right.
as you know, and then
Right.
that was broken when Tom Corbett lost re-election a couple of years ago. So then you had 8 years of Tom Wolf, and now you'll have 4 years of Josh Shapiro and perhaps more. So it's a little bit different type of transition. Josh Shapiro is, let me politely say, the consummate politician. He's a professional politician, ran for the state legislature, got elected, then ran for Montgomery County Commissioner while he was still in the legislature, then ran for Attorney General rather, while he was still Montgomery County Commissioner, then ran for governor while he was still Attorney General. So I bluntly would look for Josh Shapiro to try to run for other offices, and there aren't too many left. So you can figure figure it out from there.
Yeah, right. Well, it'd be nice to have it's been a while since we've had a president from Pennsylvania, right? So.
Well, we have one right now that claims he's from Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, he was born here. He has the highway named after him. So as far as this transition, I just want to spend a little bit more time with that, Charlie, because I think that's really important if we can get some voices out of central Pennsylvania and particularly the greater Susquehanna Valley on those. So typically a portal. And what you do is you put a resume in, and it's usually in an area where you know something.
Yeah, it's far better if you're saying I can provide specific subject matter expertise in this particular area. That's what they're looking for.
Right.
And I think that, Shapiro is very policy minded. He's almost wonkish.
Yeah, I've noticed that about him.
He's going to want input on policy.
Right.
And on mechanics as well, because the one thing I do believe he will be is a serious manager of state government. So he's going to want help in terms of the administrative side, but he'll really want help on the policy side.
I was very impressed. It was probably 5 weeks ago or so. My doorbell rings at the chamber, and I go down, and there's Josh Shapiro standing in our lobby, and he's just with his driver, and he wanted to see the thruway. The Central Susquehanna Valley Thruway, and wanted to understand the process. He'd heard something about it, wanted to understand the process. I thought, well, that's pretty neat. That he would just pull in.
An old transportation guy.
Yeah, well, I knew a little bit of something about the Thruway. I've staffed 3 transition teams, but I never actually understood where the people came from. Tell a funny story. It was the Wednesday morning after the Tuesday night in 1994. We're up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I think at that point I had about maybe 90 minutes of sleep. Mark Holman knocks on the door and says, "Bob, get up. We got to start the transition." I was like, "Wow, Mark, didn't I know that I at least get a little bit of sleep?" So it's a great process, and really those transition reports really do set the tone for an administration. What do you know about the lieutenant governor?
Not that much. Served in the General Assembly for a couple of terms, was chosen obviously to provide geographic balance to the Democrat ticket. He's an African-American, so Josh Shapiro is very proud of the fact that we'll have our first African-American lieutenant governor. As you know, the lieutenant governor's office is really a role that centers large on what a governor will give it as responsibility. It has relatively little responsibility under the Constitution, most notably presiding over the Senate. But typically lieutenant governors have had a lot to do with PEMA, with energy policy, et cetera. So it's going to be interesting to see, beyond going to funerals, what Austin Davis gets tasked to do.
Yeah, and I guess coming out of Philadelphia, he'll have an urban perspective.
Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh, excuse me, that's right. Shapiro's Montgomery County. Apologies. The coming out of Pittsburgh, he'll have that perspective, and we maybe look forward to working with him with our what we call our Community Prosperity Alliance, our Main Street program. So, the state Senate. Let's just touch on it now. In the greater Susquehanna Valley, not a lot was happening in the state Senate, but any any perspectives? on
No,
what
I
we
think
might
the
look at
state
in the
senate is
Senate?
going to remain largely the same. You have Jake Corman, the president pro tem, departing, so there will be a shakeup in leadership on the Senate side, and perhaps the first woman president pro tem of the Senate. It's going to be in Republican hands and may be the last line of defense for the Republican Party in the legislature.
Okay, and let's go to the State House. Now, test me on this one. In the greater Susquehanna Valley, a couple of new names that you'll be getting to meet these folks now that the election is behind us. In Union County, in Western Union County, I'll call it, we'll be introducing you to Stephanie Borowitz. Stephanie lives in Lock Haven, and that's the new 76th district. Arguably the most gerrymandered district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but doesn't matter now. Stephanie is our representative, and we'll look forward to working closely with her. Just in the northern reaches of Union County, in White Deer and Craig Township, we'll be getting to know Jamie Flick. Jamie is a business person from the Williamsport area, and that district, Lycoming County used to be basically a donut and a donut hole. Now it's more of a crawler or a croissant. Joe Ham stays there. We lose him out of the greater Susquehanna Valley, but Jamie Flick picks that up, and a good, solid business person. Jump across the river, and that's Linda Schlegel-Culver. Linda will have basically everything from Sunbury North and Route 11 North in Northumberland and all of Montour County. Linda's just, we love Linda and are looking for the best. And Linda will take your pick. She'll either be in line to be a chair of a committee or the ranking member of a committee, depending on whether the Republicans are in majority or minority. And then below her, a new state rep we're getting to know is Joanne Sturr. Joanne has a big piece of Schuylkill County and lower Northumberland County, has a lot of family in lower Northumberland County. And Joanne comes out of the healthcare industry, and we've started to get to know her a little bit, and we'll certainly help her out. We say goodbye to Kurt Mosser. Kurt's a good friend, was a member of leadership, has served us well. But as you know, Kurt has several family businesses, and he feels it's time for him to focus on his family businesses. So he has served us well, and we really thank Kurt for his service over the years. And then jump back across the river and let me see, East Buffalo Township and Union Townships in Union County, all of Snyder County, and a little piece of Mifflin and a little piece of Juniata County, which David Rowe may say, that's the most gerrymandered district in all of Pennsylvania. That will be David Rowe going for the next 2 years. So that's what the House of Representatives looks like. Now, Charlie, I'm going to put you on the spot here. There seems to be some argument here in Harrisburg about who has the majority. And I was reading, I sort of had to make a map almost this morning to understand what the issues are, but what does it look like right now going forward? Who will have the majority in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives?
I was going to ask you who was going to have the majority, because I don't know. I mean, it's a muddled mess. And just let me say parenthetically, these mugs that grace these bookshelves behind us, there's one over there with Kurt Mosser's image on it, because he is a great friend and was a great state representative, and I know you'll miss him. He's done a great job, and wish him the best in the days ahead. The Democrats have claimed that they control the General Assembly, but as is so often the case, the State House of Representatives races sometimes boil down to these very, very, very minuscule margins, 40, 50, 60, 75, 100 votes. And there are several that are like that right now. Mm-hmm. So the balance of power in the House is still up for grabs. But again, in my judgment, Republicans should not be having this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. So the mere fact that we are is a advantage Democrats in terms of Tuesday's elections. If the Democrats do, in fact, emerge from this as controlling the House even by a razor-thin margin, you'll have a African-American woman as Speaker of the House, which would be a first. You would have, in my judgment, a pressure to bring some really progressive legislation to the floor. And that does not bode well for the business community, in my judgment. So we'll have to see. I think there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes wrangling and maneuvering. As you know, Bob, in years past, when we've had these razor thin margins, members have flipped to give one side the majority. I think there's the possibility that that could happen this time around. So I think that you'll be very, very interested to see the various scenarios play out, and stay tuned, folks. It's going to be very interesting.
Just 1 minute on the muddled mess. I can't help myself, but just so the listeners understand it's a math problem. The problem is that it's a razor thin split to begin with, 203 representatives, and it looks like right now we can pretty well say 100 here and 100 there. Well, what do we do with the other 3? Well, here's the problem. In Pittsburgh, they elected a dead guy. Okay, by 6-1, by the way. So there's a state rep there. There needs to be a special, and I don't mean to make light of Representative DeLuca. He served his district very, very well. Passed away. It was too late. His name was on the ballot. He got reelected. So that will be a special. Then a state rep ran for Congress and won. Well, the problem is she won both. Summer Lee out in Pittsburgh. So literally the swearing in for Congress and the swearing in for the state house is exactly the same day at the same moment in January. So does she get sworn in to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives or U.S. House of Representatives? We don't know yet. Then the other issue is Austin Davis. Ran for lieutenant governor and for state rep at the same time. Now that one's interesting because there's about a 2-week gap between when you get sworn in to be a state rep and when you get sworn in to be the lieutenant governor. And will Austin Davis stand to be sworn in as a state rep for 2 weeks, and then switch back and become a lieutenant governor 2 weeks later? We don't know. So a lot to be figured out. By the way, folks, if he does that, that switches that means the Democrats would have the majority for 2 weeks. Then with math, there's more Republicans than there are Democrats. They call an election, they elect their own speaker, and we find ourselves in a constitutional crisis.
Only in Pennsylvania, Bob. And if you've got 2 seconds, I'll share a quick story with you. About 40 years ago, there was a midterm election, and the split in the House was 101 to 101. You need 102 to have a majority. Right. That last seat was a tied election. Mathematicians said it was a 1 in a trillion shot that would actually happen. Now it worked out, because the seat here and there flipped because of other numbers. But on election night, it was 101 to 101 with the one seat that was going to determine who controlled the Pennsylvania legislature tied. So for anybody that says my vote doesn't matter, everybody's vote really matters.
1 in a trillion. I only hear that when the lottery hits $2 billion, and I'm certain I have.
I was pretty disappointed that my winning ticket the other night didn't come through for me.
Yeah. Okay, let's. We're getting a little short of time here, Charlie. I want to spend a little bit of time on next year. I probably will, unless you bring it up. I probably will not bring up 2024 in the presidential, but next year's a municipal election. Take us, you're a former municipal official. I'm a former municipal official. Take us a walk down memory lane and impress upon the members of the greater Susquehanna Valley how important it is to have chamber members in those municipal seats.
Couldn't be more important, Bob. And I mean, Pennsylvania has more municipal governments than any state in the union, except perhaps Illinois, depending on how you define municipal governments. But we've got a ton of local governments, and they're the governments that really impact people where they live and work. And they're the folks that you can see at the grocery store, at church, or at school, et cetera, and that you can have real interaction with. So chamber members ought to not only be seriously and significantly interacting with those folks, but ought to consider running for office themselves. An awful lot of times, Bob, as you know, these races come up and there aren't even candidates to put on the ballot. And they do control significant aspects of our lives. And let me just say, school boards, which have become much more of a focus since the pandemic, are the ones that really, really impact individuals. If you look at a school board budget, it's exponentially larger than any municipal budget. Yeah. And, there's an opportunity to serve and to interact very, very closely with the folks that really do control a big piece of your tax bill.
Well, there you hear it, folks. If there's anything I can do to encourage you, and by the way, we just came out of this highly politicized, highly polarized election. In municipal elections, they're anything but that. There's Republicans and Democrats, but when you get in there, you're really there to serve and serve all of the people of your community, all of the people of the school district. Well, we're gonna wrap it up there, and I'm going to turn it back over to Art and Kendi to take us out. Maybe you have one zinger question for us or something, Art. We'll be happy to handle it. Otherwise, I think we'll declare success, and that's what happens now.
I just want to know who's going to win the Georgia runoff.
The one with the most votes, right? Yeah.
There's a good answer. Right?
Well, Charlie, please jump in on this. It's runoff elections. Let's be honest, folks. They are a remnant of the antebellum racist South. And what an interesting situation we find ourselves in with two well-qualified Black men running against each other in a something that was invented to keep them out of office. I don't miss that. That is important for you to keep that in perspective. The winner in Georgia will determine the majority in the Senate. There's no question about that at this point, I would say.
Well, there might be a question, Bob, depending on what happens in a couple of these other seats, but it's most likely going to determine it. And Art, so much is going to happen between now and December 6th that I would be an idiot to even venture a guess, because this is a state race in, a mid-sized state that's going to be impacted by the nation and the world. I mean, you're going to see activity in Georgia that nobody has ever even imagined. I mean, it's going to be greater than it was 2 years ago. And let me just follow up on what Bob said, because I'm a historian and I get a chuckle out of these things. The Georgia runoff system is really an antiquity, as Bob said, that is hard to imagine. You might remember the name Lester Maddox, who was famous for chasing African Americans out of his restaurant with an axe handle. He was elected governor of Georgia without ever winning an election. That's pretty tough to do. But because of their runoff system, they couldn't come out with anybody that had over 50%. So Lester Maddox's election went to the state legislature, and the House of Representatives elected him governor back in 1966.
Well, things have certainly changed there, haven't they? Yeah.
It makes you recall that the Chinese proverb, "May you live in interesting times," was a curse. It was truly a curse, and we do live in interesting times.
Well, I want to thank both of you for your insight. I have to admit, some of the stuff early on in your discussion, a lot of us have probably heard pieces of that over the last couple of days, but you sure educated me with some state legislature history and the way things work. And I had no idea, with as tight as the legislature is, what was going on with those three particular races that you mentioned, with the deceased candidate and the people with dual wins. It could be quite some time here before we have the final answer, I suppose. Thanks again to everybody. Thanks, Tracy, for sticking around. And as always, for your sponsorship. We don't do these events without the PPL sponsorship. Thanks, John Euling, for accepting the responsibility of chairing our nominating committee for next year, and a wonderful job you did. As always, I'll take some credit why I appointed you as chair of that committee, and hopefully that'll roll through smoothly. Kendi, thank you for your tech support. We had no issues today. And of course, Charlie and Bob, thanks for your insight once again. I've got 9:29. Everybody's got something else to do. Have a good day. Till next time.